And our first reading is from Isaiah chapter 55. For you shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills before you will break into singing, and all the trees of the fields shall clap their hands. And from Rumi, this being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Friends, this is ancient wisdom and holy word. Thanks be to all that is wise and holy. All creation is wisdom and holy word. All creation sings of wisdom and God. Hallelujah.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. No, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
So this African-American spiritual sings of a joy that is deeper, wider, stronger than the temporary pleasures we spend so much of our lives seeking. And like with so many spirituals, there's a sense of pain transmuted into pleasure, of suffering subsumed into the satisfaction of knowing God, of difficulties transfigured into delight. I think we're so often drawn to spirituals and to gospel music because it comes from that deep place of knowing a strength beyond what makes sense, knowing a peace that passes understanding, knowing a delight that defies logic. And because of this, these songs have juice. They are juicy. This joy was written by North Carolinian Shirley Caesar. Born in 1938 in Durham, the 10th of 13 children, Caesar is known as the First Lady of Gospel Music. She began recording at the age of 12 and has made 40 albums. She performed for the Obamas at the White House in 2015, along with Aretha Franklin. And in 2016, at the age of 78, Caesar found herself back at the very top of the gospel Billboard chart.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
The world didn't give it to me. Now, the world here means the circumstances of our reality. Our circumstances may be happy or they may be sad. They may be delightful or they may be devastating. They may inspire hope or they may require help. They might lift us heavenward or drag us through hell. Our circumstances are always changing, always impermanent, always unpredictable. The circumstantial evidence of our lives might condemn us to unhappiness or even despair. We look at the ecological mess we've created, or the political divisions, or the racial hatred, or the mass delusions overwhelming our nation, or even situations smaller and closer to home, our illnesses, our estrangements. And the situations may not lead us to think happy thoughts.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
What the world doesn't mean here is the earth. It doesn't mean here we're in hell and later we'll be in heaven. The joy in the song is here on earth and now, not later. And earth is part of the beauty. When I was in my own church choir as a teenager, we sang this wonderful anthem based on that text from Isaiah that I read. You shall go forth in joy, be led forth in peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth into singing. And I always loved singing that and imagining the mountains and the hills breaking forth into singing and the trees clapping their hands. The world of circumstances may not give us joy, but the earth not only gives joy, but joins us in expressing joy. I mean, look around you this spring. It is great out there, juicy, joyful. You don't have to be a pagan to get this, though I think pagans do have a little more fun on Beltane than a lot of Christians do even at Christmas. This week, we had this beautiful supermoon, a pink full moon, and I joined others to walk Johanna's Labyrinth that night. As I moved under the moon, through the twists and turns of the path, I felt the tensions and irritations and confusions of that day just slipping away. And stepping through the gorgeous design under that exhilarating moon, my bare feet found their rhythm. And this song kept coming into my head.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
The world can't take it away. The world can't take it away. The world can't take it away. How do we enter into that deep knowing, that place of peace more compelling than any momentary disturbance, that source of potency that can energize any situation, that truth beyond all the facts? This year, we have seen and felt that we are in the midst of what's been called the Great Unraveling. But the Great Unraveling did not start with the pandemic or with disturbing reports from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change or with the 2016 election. Most of us here today have been living through the Great Unraveling for much of our lives. It's just getting more obvious for those who hadn't noticed before. Father Richard Rohr wrote this week that we are living in apocalyptic times. He then explained, apocalyptic literature, say that 5 times fast, is not meant to strike fear in us as much as radical rearrangement. It's not the end of the world, it's the end of worlds, our worlds that we have created. In the book of Revelation, also called the Apocalypse, John is trying to describe what it feels like when everything falls apart. It's not a threat, it's an invitation to depth. It's what it takes to wake people up to the real, the lasting, to what matters. It presents the serious reader, he writes, with the great what if. What if? What if the great unraveling and the great turning, in Joanna Macy's words, are the same thing? It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Some days. Or as they sang in the 60s, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Now, whether you buy into the astrology or not, it's easy to understand the metaphorical truth that we are in the midst of a sea change of human existence. From the moon landing in 1969 to the Mars landing in 2021, we've seen a speeding up of new technologies on the one hand and of mass conspiracy theories on the other. Coincidence? What if What if we, you, me, Jubilee, are here incarnate in this moment to be part of this change? What if the dawning of that new age began with a group of people who got to know this weird jazz musician in the 1980s who was a fan of a weird theologian who wrote a controversial book about, of all things, original blessing? For those of you who are newer to Jubilee, let me spell out that I'm talking here about Howard Hanger and Matthew Fox and the beginning of this community. Far-fetched that this little group of goofballs dwelling in this little city known as the cesspool of sin might have something to do with the Great Turning? What if? What if? What if we lived as if this were true? And what if, now that Howard is no longer captain of the ship, but is comfortably sipping cocktails on the deck, the crew is in charge of making sure that we're setting our sails with the winds of the Spirit to take us in the next direction of our destiny? What if everything that's happened here in the last 2 years is the painful tilling of the soil, the decay required for making compost, the tearing up and breaking down that gets us ready to plant new seeds in this beautiful garden known as Jubilee? What if our challenge in this moment is to sink down deep into the bosom of Mother Earth and find a joy so bright that no shadow of this world can dull its glow? What if we find a joy, a peace, a love that comes from a source greater than the charms and challenges of this moment and raises us to a vantage point where we can see beyond our usual field of vision and into the endless fields of possibility?
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. The world can't take it away.
So how do we do this? What gets us from here to there? Brother David Stendhal-Rast writes, joy is that extraordinary happiness that is independent of what happens to us. Good luck can make us happy, but it cannot give us lasting joy. The root of joy is gratefulness. The root of joy is gratefulness. In the Book of Joy, the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu reflect on their lives of activism, spiritual leadership, and joy. Both were in their 80s already when this book was made. And if you've ever seen either of them in person or even on a TV appearance, you'll know that traits they share are their wide smiles and easy laughter. Their eyes twinkle, exuding a contagious sense of play. You look at them and think, ooh, juicy. But if you know anything about either of their lives, you know this joy did not come easily. The Dalai Lama was exiled from his home in occupied Tibet as a young man, and his life has been dedicated to the causes of freedom and peace, so much so that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his nonviolent struggle for the liberation of Tibet. Archbishop Tutu grew up under apartheid in South Africa and has spent his life fighting that system of racialized hatred and other systems of oppression around the world. He chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that brought South Africans together to publicly name the traumas of apartheid. How very different from our own nation's culture of whitewashing our most painful history. So when Archbishop and the Dalai Lama giggle and tease and dance together and share their joy, you know it comes from a place that has seen the worst of what humanity can be and do. Not just seen it, but lived it. And yet, joy. and yet laughter, and yet playfulness. So juicy. Now, the end of that book includes practices for overcoming each of the 8 obstacles to joy that these two describe, and practices to cultivate the 8 pillars of joy that they name. And they named them this way: perspective, humility, humor, acceptance, forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and generosity. Each practice is simple: journaling for gratitude, meditating for compassion, walking in nature. They're practices that we talk about and do here at Jubilee. What if? What if? What if this crazy community is a critical piece of the puzzle that humanity needs right now? This place that preaches acceptance and gratitude, that practices humor and generosity. This group that leans into the beauty of this earth and the love of God that never, ever fails. What if becoming joy is the answer to the questions of our time? It's like that great Howard Thurman quote: "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." What makes you come alive? What brings you joy? What gets your juices flowing? What if your lively, juicy joy is exactly what the world needs right now? Oh, yeah.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me.